welcome everybody to Attracting High Value Clients with Google Ads. And we're really looking forward to giving you this webinar and looking forward to questions as well. So please pop any questions in the chat and or jump on at the end. We'll have some opportunity to answer questions. But we're looking forward to this because it's particularly relevant to the disruptions that we've seen in practice over the last couple of years, and we will see going forward as well. Google Ads is something that you may be familiar with, and in short, if you are, you've heard about it, it's probably in your mind that it's about growing your business. Well, sometimes you don't want to grow your business. You've got staff pressures, you've got too many appointments, or you want to target your business into different directions for areas that are more valuable. And Google Ads is a really, really useful tool for manipulating the inbound leads so that you can actually manage your business better. And that's what we're going to be doing today, which is pretty exciting. So here are your famous presenters, James and Adam. You probably met some of us or not all of us. So just a brief intro. I'm James. I founded PetPack. My real motivation for creating an online marketing communications agency is really about better communications for pet owners. If we can get better information from vets to pet owners, we know we get better animal care, and we measure that. It's fantastic, and it's a really big part of my view of what a good vet is communications, and that's why we're here at PetPack. And really, that's what PetPack does. So one of the key things we do is provide measurable improvements to how clinics communicate with their communities, and that provides directly measurable improvements in animal health care. Over to you, Adam.
Yeah, so I'm Adam. I'm the operations manager at PetPack. My background's in marketing and IT, and my main focus here at PetPack is on providing measurable results and consistent improvement for our clients across any of the services they're using, whether it's Google Ads or websites, social media content, or email newsletters. I want to make sure that it's working well and getting better over time. Back over to you, James.
Yeah, so look at today's topics. Basically, just to expand a bit on what I said at the start, we're doing Google Ads. And what we're doing with Google Ads is talking about how you can actually manage your business better. What that means is if you are short-staffed, which a lot of you guys have been, and you'll also be finding that's a fluctuating issue. So sometimes you're short-staffed, sometimes you're not. But also we're looking at staff shortages going forward. You really want to have a tool that helps you generate business that's the business that you want. Just to reiterate, Google Ads is not just about growing your business. In fact, during COVID, we helped clinics slow down their business by pulling back on their ads particularly. And then we also help businesses target their growth into specific areas, which is what we're going to be covering today. So, what do you do when you've got limited staff and you're already busy? That's one of the things we're going to be covering today, and Google Ads can help there. Some of the things you want to do, people want to do more surgery to be able to compete effectively there, to let the community know that you do it. Google Ads is really, really powerful for that. And then, one of the most important things is keeping your team on top of things and not overwhelming them. And that's one of probably the predominant challenge we've had in the last 2 years. But as I said earlier, it's a chronic issue for the industry, and we need to be smarter about what sort of work we do and how we manage our teams, and Google Ads can help with that. So next, I want to give you just a brief overview of what ads are, what they look like on a screen. The screen we're going to show you is a desktop computer, and it's really important to understand that most consumers will come to you through a mobile. They will see the same information, but it's laid out, as you know, in a vertical format. So a good thing to do while you're watching this webinar is pick up your mobile phone and do a search in your local area. And I'll tell you an example. Let's do cruise ship surgery or cruise ship surgery dog, and put not your own suburb in, but the surrounding suburb that you do draw clients from, and just see what comes up while I'm going through the screen here. So I'm going to click through what you see on a screen. So the first thing you see on our screen here, and was traditionally the only thing that was visible on screens, is the website. And this is what's called organic search. It's driven by the quality of the content on the website and the relevance of that website there to the local search area. And that's the little globe picture you can see there. Now to the right, where it says Gordon Vet Hospital, you've got the pictures there, that's called Google My Business. And Google My Business is the business listing service that Google promotes. And as we'll see in a minute, is incredibly important. The website and Google My Business, both of them are very difficult to control, and you can't pay for them. You can pay a service like ourselves to run them effectively, but they're not as flexible and responsive as the third area, which is what we'll be talking about today, which is Google Ads. And that's coming up in the colored region. So it's green. We made it green at the top so it's visible. It's also got the word ad written on it, which you will all be familiar with, having seen. And you'll all have your own views about ads. It's not uncommon for some people to say, oh, I don't like ads because I don't use them. Well, it's important to understand that about 20% of consumers will use those ads. So it's very powerful for a selective group of clients. So let's have a look now. That's your desktop screen, and if you've had a look at your mobile, that'll be really interesting to see what you think about that as well. And then let's go and have a look at what the breakdown of these three areas are for inbound calls. So this is a screen which shows the tracking for a clinic of how many calls they're getting. So now this is obviously all the different months you can see here. But going across the screen, I'll use my cursor to point you here. The first one you can see there is the web, and that's the mid blue on the left-hand side. And you can see the web accounts for about 30 to 40% of all the calls that this clinic is getting, or your clinic will be getting, if you've been set up this way. And it used to be 100%. Which is really interesting to get through the message that the website is still the core to your online marketing, but it's not all your calls. The next area, and the biggest area of calls, is Google My Business, which is the lighter blue area, which is about 50 to 60%. Well, let's say 50%. It does vary, as you can see on this. And then to the far right, and you'll have an arrow for it there as well, is the Google Ads, which is what we're focusing on. Now, you can see that the Google Ads is a smaller percentage, maybe 10 to 15%. But the really important point about this is it's totally controllable. And the reason for that also is because you're paying for it. If you're able to comply with Google's requirements for effective advertising, it can be incredibly efficient, and is what we're going to talk a bit more about today. And you can imagine that this clinic, for example, with 10 to 15% of their calls coming from ads, got stuck because one of their staff members went on sick leave, or they lost a staff member. You can see that you can actually reduce that inbound calls by 10 to 15% almost straight away by cutting off your ads. And you can't do that with your website or Google My Business. They are not responsive in that respect. Once they're up and running and going, they've got momentum, they don't change. But ads is inherently responsive. And that's probably the main point of today, is you get a lot of control with your ads. Now, what I'm going to do now is hand over to Adam, who's going to take us through more detail about the targeting of these ads.
Awesome. Thanks for that, James. So before we get into like the specific approaches and tips we've got for being targeted with ads, I just wanted to do a really quick recap of what ads is and some of the important concepts that we're going to need to understand. So I'm going to start with the simple stuff over on the left, and we'll move into the more complicated stuff over on the right as we go. So the first thing you need to know about Google Ads is that it's an online advertising platform. It lets advertisers put ads in front of audiences that are on the Google search network, on websites, on mobile apps, and also on videos as well. Now, the ads themselves can come in a couple of different shapes and sizes. They can be text-based ads, they can be image-based ads, or they can be video-based ads. And that depends a lot on where those ads are showing, which platforms are being used. So today we're going to be talking mainly about search ads, and primarily text-based search ads. And these are the ones that show up on Google search and Google map results, which you would have seen in James's example just a little bit earlier. Now, one of the most important things about Google search ads is that they use what's called a pay-per-click model. What this means is that you are only going to pay when someone actually interacts with your ad by clicking on it. So if your ad were to show up 1,000 times and nobody clicked on it, you're not going to get charged anything. But you're also not going to achieve very much either, because the goal is to get people clicking on your ads for whom that ad is relevant. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a sec. So a Google search ads account uses a list of keywords to determine which searches your ad will show up for. And these keywords should correspond with the words your target audience might use to find a particular service. So a good example here would be if someone's searching for pet desexing cost, and you've got a keyword that's pet desexing, there's good overlap there, your ad should be showing up for that search. Now, my advice for vets in regards to keywords is that you need to try and think like a pet owner, not just like a vet. You need to use the language and terminology that they're familiar with. And that doesn't mean you can't use any vet specific terminology. It just means that you need to go consumer first and think about how they might look for a solution to a problem, as opposed to how you might. Now, to appear in search results, your ad gets entered into an auction with other competing advertisers. And this is what's called a second price auction, which means that the winning bid is only nominally higher than the second place bid, and that's usually 1 cent. So you're not paying this huge difference, you only pay a little tiny bit more than whoever second place was. And this auction determines how much it costs when someone clicks on your ad, and it also determines how prominent your ads show up in search results as well. Now, we're getting over to the complicated stuff here on the right, and this is where it gets really interesting. What Google really wants to do is give people relevant information. So when someone does a search, it wants to give them results that are relevant to that search, because that's their value as a search engine. So because of this, they don't necessarily just put the person who bid the highest in the top position. They want to make sure that you're also relevant to what that person's looking for. So instead of letting that highest bidder win, what they do is apply a quality score to your ads. And this quality score determines your relevancy in Google's eyes. And it impacts how prominently you appear, and it also impacts how much it costs per click as well. And there's 3 components to the quality score that are relevant to us here today. And that's the ad relevance. That is, if someone's searching for pet desexing, are they getting an ad about pet desexing, or does it just say your local vet? So the more relevant you are, the better you do in that area. The next criteria is the expected click-through rate. And this is Google's estimate of how likely it is someone is to click on your ad if they get served that ad. They want to make sure that they're putting relevant information in front of people. Now, the last component for the quality score is called the landing page experience. And this is how relevant the content of your web page is to the user's search. So if a user has done a search for cruciate surgery, you've given them an ad that says, hi, we offer cruciate surgery. When they click on that ad, they should be going to a page on your website about cruciate surgery. And Google will follow through that link and check to make sure that that page is relevant. And now I want you to remember that one, because this is going to come up later in some of the advice that I have. Now, finally, now that we're through all of the basics there, I just want to briefly touch on what we're actually trying to achieve with ads. So we're not actually concerned with just getting clicks. We are really concerned with what happens next. What real world actions come out of someone clicking on your ad? And we call these actions conversions. And they come in a couple of different types. The main ones for vets are phone calls, their online bookings, and their inquiries. So what we do is we measure those through your ads account to make sure we can say, you spent this much on advertising and you got this many real world conversions out of it. And then you can get what's called the cost per conversion measurement. And with that figure, you can determine if you're making a good return on your advertising. So those are some of the basic concepts we'll need to understand as we go through our approach that we're going to recommend for busy vets. And I'm going to hand back over to James to go through that information now.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. And we're on taking a targeted approach now. So look, I think one of the key points that I'm going to reiterate is the integration between your ads and your website. And this is important because that's next level online marketing. You know, it's not that you have a website and then you have ads and they operate independently. For the best results and for good results, we know they need to be integrated, and that's where you have the information on your website that relates to the ad. So the person goes, yeah, I'm in the right spot and I actually will make a booking with these people. And one of the benefits of that is you actually get charged less by Google when you run your ads properly, which is where our area of expertise is. So, you know, what I want to look at here is, you know, what are we going to be targeting? What are the sorts of things? And the sorts of things that you would want to target for, you know, better use of your clinic business and team and you know, resources are things like cruciate surgeries, oncology, behavioral consults if you're doing those, laser treatments, and euthanasia. We've seen remarkable consumer interest in euthanasia. It's growing, particularly home euthanasias. And if you can provide the right information to people, you will pick up new clients, but you also pick up some of your existing clients who, you know, might have been searching around for information as well. So, and I made that list just as examples, but we find when we talk to our clients, they have particular things they want to focus on. You might have something that's high value that you want to focus on as well. There's a few key points, and of course, with this example, dentistry is a very good one as well. You know, often a clinic will have, even if you're limited on staff, you'll have resources sitting there that can do more dentistry. So you might actually have say, we're going to focus on dentistry for this week or this month. You've got a machine there that has been underutilized. You've got 80% of your clients over 3 years have got dental disease. We know from doing the communications with our clients that we get a very strong response from the community when we make it easy for them to engage with dental care. And here's an example of an ad for someone who might be thinking about dental care. They might pick this up as well and come to your clinic. So, you know, one of the key things, which is probably obvious from the word targeting, is avoid targeting everyone and everything. And that's primarily because you want to generate the business that you want, but also because you'll be much more competitive if you're targeting particular areas. Think about those high value services you want. I made a list before. You might have something else in there that you would actually like to target. One of the key things is that there's got to be enough people out there looking for the service. So one of the things about ads is if it's a rare service or a rare consumer that's looking for it, you won't get much traction with your ads. But the things that we listed before, cruciates, euthanasias, for example, dentistry, there's a lot of people looking for those, and they have high value as well. And then also for the bigger jobs like cruciate surgery, people are prepared to travel further. So you can actually target those in a wider geographic area. So you can see there's a lot of factors in here that we'll be working with a clinic on to actually make these work. And the other thing too is the consumer's got to be thinking about it. There's no point advertising a service they're not aware of, because you won't even connect with them. But you can just imagine if you've had a diagnosis as a pet owner of a cruciate injury, and the vet's told you got this, injury, you've got a couple of options about what you can do about it. You're probably going to go home and start researching. And if you are researching and the clinic's ad comes up or another clinic's ad comes up, and then that ad links to a website which has really good information about what that surgery is and how the clinic deals with it, there's a very good chance you'll pick up that client, that high value client. Now, Adam's going to go through this in a bit more detail. Thanks, Adam. On the next slide.
Yeah, no worries. So the last criteria that's really important here is your ability to compete for that particular service. And I want to go through a little bit about what you need to do in order to compete effectively in Google Ads when you're going after something that's like a high value service. So I'll go through that a little bit here. So now, in order to effectively promote a high value service through Google Ads, you've got two main audiences that you need to appease. The first one is Google themselves, and the second is your potential client, the pet owner. Now, thankfully, these two groups actually want a lot of the same thing. So there's not that much double up here. So I'll just go through some of the things that you need to do for each of them. So first of all, relevant search results. We mentioned before, this is what Google is trying to achieve. They want to put a relevant result in front of someone. And that's exactly what your potential client, the pet owner, wants as well. When they're doing their research, they want information that's relevant to the problem they have. So you should be showing them a relevant ad, and it should be taking them to a relevant place. So that's the next thing that Google cares about. They want relevant page content. If you're advertising for desexing, if you're advertising for dentistry, home euthanasia, etc., then the page content that they're being taken to after they click on your ad should be relevant to that service. So that's something that they have in common. Now, it's at this point where we start to see some differences here. So Google at this point already has your money. They actually aren't that concerned if the person takes that next step and becomes a client of yours, because they've fulfilled their goal of providing that person with relevant information. But you, as the practice owner, need to do a little bit more in order to satisfy the needs of the pet owner. So beyond just having relevant page content, you want to have page content that is compelling. This is content that actually delivers on the user expectations, and those expectations can be quite high for a high value service. The pet owner is likely to have a lot of questions, a lot of anxieties, uncertainty about the service and the service provider options that they have. So you need to do what you can to answer any questions they're likely to have, and to convince them that your practice is the place that's best situated to provide this service for them. So that's what your content needs to be able to achieve. It needs to make sure that you are the trusted source for this particular service. So it's not just that your content is relevant, it's compelling. It actually gets them through to the next step. So the next step is providing a clear next step for the pet owner. So you might have told them everything they ever needed to know about cruciate surgery, but if they don't know what to do next, they might not become a client of yours. They might thank you for your information and then move on somewhere else. You should think about what it is that client needs to do in order to access a particular service at your practice. And it could be for any type of service, but it needs to be well thought out. You need to think about what information you are going to need from them, what information they are going to need from you, and how to get a start going. So they might need to fill in a form on your website that provides you with all the information you need to give them a quote. They might need to just make a booking, and it can take them through the booking process. But you need to make sure that you've got all that covered off, so that now that you've paid for them to come to your website, you actually get something out of that for your business. So that's why it's super important to go beyond what Google wants and to satisfy all the needs of your client. So now, I mentioned a little bit earlier that cost per conversion is a key measure for the effectiveness of Google Ads. So at this point, you've already paid money to bring someone onto your website. And if they don't convert, then that money is, for want of a better word, wasted. So you need to be prepared to spend money in order to get people through on any of these particular services. And for some high value services, you may need to spend more than you might for a general consultation, because the bar is quite a lot higher. So that's what you need to keep in mind for competing effectively, making sure that your website sets you up for success. So I want to move on to the next slide that we've got here. And this is sort of some more general advice for advertising with Google Ads while you're already busy. Now, one of the best things about Google Ads is its flexibility and the control it provides. James mentioned this earlier. So at a moment's notice, you can make sweeping changes to your Google Ads account in response to things that are going on in the practice. So the tips that I've got here are to help if you've already got an ads account and you're trying to take the pressure off your team a little bit. And the first one is just remember that you can make changes. A lot of people forget, they just leave things as they are in place running all the time. And you should remember that it's really easy to make adjustments. So don't hesitate to get in there and start changing things. Now, the next piece of advice I have is to use your ad schedule to avoid the busy times. So if you're getting slammed by calls at 9 a.m. every Monday morning, maybe you don't need extra calls coming in from ads just then. You can change your ad schedule so that the ads start later in the day. They could start at 11 or 12 o'clock after that morning rush is over. You can also be a little bit more granular in your approach. You can keep the ads running. You might want to get online bookings come through at that time, but you can actually make it so that the call option doesn't show up with your ads. So there's a call scheduling option in Google Ads, and you can just remove that option. So your ad still shows up at 9 a.m. on Monday morning, but now they don't have the option to click and call directly. You're trying to encourage them to take a different path into the practice. So move on to the next one, and that's adjusting your budget based on your workload. So your Google Ads budget determines to a large extent how much you get in terms of total calls and bookings through Google Ads. And it can be adjusted up or down as frequently as needed. So some vets have found during sort of like lockdown periods that they needed to adjust their budgets down. They still wanted to get some traffic coming in from Google Ads, but not as much as they had been getting. So you have a very fine degree of control here. You can set it up or down, weekly, daily, monthly adjustments. It's extremely flexible. And I'd recommend you take a look at your workload, your team schedule, or even just how stressed people seem in the team, and have a think about how you can adjust the budget to help take some of that pressure off. The next one is encouraging online bookings. Now, we're very aware that when vet practices get busy, online bookings can sort of add a bit of fuel to that fire. Sometimes you want to have more control over your schedule, and online bookings can make that a little bit tricky. Assuming you've got that under control, you may find that it's easier to sort of channel people into online bookings rather than phone calls, especially coming from Google Ads. Because if you're paying for someone to call you and your team's too busy to answer the phone, that's a missed opportunity for your business. So it might be better off encouraging people to go through to your online booking portal, and that's the way they convert instead of over the phone. In support of that, the last piece of advice that I've got here is to use device targeting in Google Ads. So you can actually pick which sort of user device you want your ads showing up for or not showing up for. So it could be desktop computer, it could be tablets, it could be mobile phones, and you can pick which devices are going to be showing your ads at any given time. So you might find that you really just want to get people who want to do online booking. So you stop showing your ads on a mobile phone altogether. It reduces the total volume of ads that are out there, but it encourages you to get more people who are going to use online booking instead of calling you on the phone when they see your ad. So those are some tips that we have for sort of helping you to manage the stress that ads can cause for your team and sort of make it a little bit more manageable. There's lots of other things you can do in Google Ads. It gives you a lot of control. So if you want more advice about this, don't hesitate to ask. But for now, I'm going to hand back over to James, who's going to tell you about our offer.
Thanks, Adam. That's fantastic. There's so much in that, though, isn't there? Like, I'm not sure if you guys listening are finding it a bit overwhelming, but you know, really, this area of ads is an area of expertise, and you know, we've developed this expertise over quite a few years. In fact, PetPak's been running for about 20 years now. When we started, ads didn't exist, of course. You know, in fact, websites were the only thing that you could find on the web. And as we said earlier, it's evolved into this triumvirate, really: ads, Google My Business, and websites. And you know, what we'd really like to do is see more clinics using ads because they're incredibly flexible and can really help a practice, you know, evolve and be much more effective at communicating with their communities and growing the business they want to do. And so to that end, we've created a free trial, which when we've done this with some other practices, has been incredibly successful. So it allows the clinic to get on board. We do the full setup with you. So you can run the ads for a month. There's no PetPak cost. You will need to pay the ads costs, and we can talk to you about what that budget would look like. And then at the end of that month period, you have reporting, which talks about what it's done for the business. You'll see what it's done in the business because you'll feel the changes in the business. You might have got some more cruciate surgeries or whatever it is you're targeting. And you know, clinics that have done this have found it incredibly rewarding, and most of them have gone on to continue using ads in one form or other. So we thoroughly recommend it. If you'd like to do the trial, please let us know. There's a couple of ways you can do that. There's a link here, which you can find. You can find the ads trial information on our website. It's pretty easy to find, and there's a lot more information there. You can put a message in the chat today during the webinar you'd like to do it, and we can follow it up. And also, we'll send you a follow-up email, which will have the link as well. So, please take advantage of this. If ads are going to be relevant for you, this is a great way to learn about it. And thanks for joining us. I think we've delivered some really useful information, and hopefully it's been relevant to you guys. And now, if there are any questions, please let us know. Thank you. I've got a question. Adam, are there any questions in there at the moment?
I can't see any open questions at the moment, so you go ahead, James.
Yeah, I've got one. Just a question around the integration, the connection with the website. How would you go about, setting up the website so that the ad is relevant, or that when the person comes in, there's relevant content on there? What's the process?
Yeah. So integration's a really important part of using Google Ads effectively. So like we talked a little bit about here, having very specific content available on your site is one of the best things you can do to help your ads performance. So a lot of vet websites will have like a list of every service they offer on one page, and they'll have like 2 or 3 sentences about that service. But you really need to go a bit further than that, especially if you're advertising something like a high value service. So you really want to have its own separate page if it's something like cruciate surgery, and you really want it to be quite detailed with, probably like 300 to 800 words of content on there, depending on how many questions the average client's likely to have. So that content makes a huge difference to the performance of your ad, because it improves that quality score that we talked about earlier. So you've got that relevant landing page, and Google recognizes that, and basically makes it so that your ads don't cost as much per click and get better placements. So the other part of that as well is sort of conversion tracking as well on your website. So you need a way of knowing if people are doing the things that you want them to do once they've gotten onto that page. And those things could be things like they downloaded a PDF fact sheet, or they submitted your quote form, or they made a booking, or even just gave you a call. If they've performed any of those actions, you want to be able to track them back from that action occurring on your website back to the ads account, so you know that that's where they've come from. And that way you can work out, okay, we've been running ads for a month. We spent $300 on our ads, and we got 5 conversions for our cruciate surgery service. And that way you can sort of figure out how much you're paying per opportunity that's being generated through ads.
Yeah, and I want to let everyone know that we help clinics do all that. So when we're doing this setup, we discuss with what you're trying to target, and all these things we're discussing is what we do. Yeah, that's terrific. Thanks for that. Really good to get that understanding, because I think, as I said earlier, people are not really aware of the intricacies of how these services work. They often see them as being separate, but to be effective, they've got to be totally integrated. Thank you. All right, well, that's unless there are any other questions, I think that's a wrap for us today.
Yep, no worries. Thanks for all that, James. Thanks everyone for joining, and like I said, if you've got any questions, feel free to get in touch.
Go on, you guys. Thanks very much. Thanks, Adam. Cheers.